everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Sega Genesis game, and it happens to be Gargoyles, which is based after the cartoon show Gargoyles. And it was developed by Disney Soft, which is a part of Disney, of course, and it was published by Buena Vista Interactive. Now, before I talk about the game itself, I'm going to talk a little bit about the TV show. And I can tell you one thing, I definitely loved this show growing up, and it has been a very long time since I've last watched it. But I still remember all the characters and even the theme song. And one thing that is interesting is that most of the cast was actually done by the cast members of Star Trek The Next Generation, so that's actually pretty damn cool. And real quickly, here's just some of the action figures that I found. Unfortunately, I used to have more, but I couldn't find them for some whatever reason, so this is all I got. And I have to say, I really like the looks of them. Even though I'm not sure if these two are actually from Gargoyles, but they do kind of have that similar style to them. I don't know, maybe I should do a video talking about some of the toys I used to have. So with all that aside, now let's talk about the game, and it happens to be a side-scroller, where you can beat people up, you can even throw them around, and you can even climb up walls and even some ceilings. Now the game does have a story, but it's very loosely based after the show. But what you need to know is that you're taking control of the character Goliath, who is the main character of the show. And you have to find something called the Eye of Odin, which could potentially end the world, so you don't want that to happen. So first you start off in the past, and then you go into the present later. Now the only characters that do show up within this game is, well, of course, the main character Goliath, and then there's Demona, who is the main enemy. Now it is unfortunate you don't get to see any of the other characters appear in this game, but it's okay, it's just one of those things that would have been cool to have. So for now, let's talk about the gameplay, and like I already said, you can punch people, you can throw them around, you can climb up walls and ceilings, you can double jump, you can even like swing off ledges, and you can even break through some of the walls and the floors with some dash attack. And there was little gauntlets that you can collect, but I think it's just for points. And of course, there is many different obstacles you have to avoid, so with that being said, it's a pretty basic platformer. But if I say so myself, I really like the level design. Even though there's quite a bit of parts that are kind of a pain in the ass, at least it is kind of refreshing to be playing something that is actually really tough and challenging. And you do get a boss at the end of each stage, and let me tell you, the first boss in this game is actually pretty damn tough for a first boss. Now you have to be really fast as shit to do it, because a lot of the times he's gonna hit you like no matter what with his lightning bolts, and if you're too slow, not only are you gonna get hit by the lightning bolt, but you could also get hit by his hammer. And it does like a shit ton of damage to you, while the damage you make to him is not really a whole lot. Now I am glad that you at least do get a health bar, and sure it is very small, but at least you can take a couple of hits. It's just from the bosses you have to be very careful. And even though the first boss is pretty annoying, at least it can be done with a couple of tries, at least that's how long it took me to do it. So with that being said, I have to say this game is actually pretty damn tough. But it's a good kind of tough, because this is a game that is really all about practice and even some patience. Now in the third stage, it really did take me quite a while just to get up onto the building. Now as for the controls in this game, they're actually not bad. They're pretty easy and self-explanatory, although I know for me I actually had to rework some of them in the option menu, but at least you do get that option. And the controls do feel very good, although I do have two complaints. Now I do find that the hit detection is a little bit off, because sometimes you can't be like right on top of them, you have to be like in the right spot, but it's really not a huge issue, but it is there and it is noticeable. I mean, thankfully this isn't like Karate Champ or Pit Fight or any of that shit. And the other complaint has to do with the animation. Now I have to say, the animation does look fucking fantastic. But when you're trying to climb up a wall, it is kind of annoying, because sometimes you'll press up and he'll put his hand onto the wall, but then when you just let go of it real quick, nothing happens. So you pretty much have to wait until the full cycle of the animation. Now it is kind of annoying, but it really isn't the worst thing ever. I mean, I've played other games that did have animation stuff that were way more delayed than this. But other than those two things, I have to say the controls actually work rather well. Now as for the game's graphics, I have to say they also look very damn good. Now I already said that the animation of the sprite work is very good, but I do find that the animation of the robot enemies are kind of interesting, because they're the only ones in this game that are CGI. Now it is odd, but it definitely does look pretty cool on the Genesis. But as for like the backgrounds and such, yeah, that definitely does look great. Mostly because it really does suit the way how the show looks with its gothic architecture. So I really don't have any complaints whatsoever when it comes to the graphics, and well, they look pretty damn fantastic. Now as for the game's music, it is actually pretty well done. And they even done the main theme of the show in this game, and it actually sounds really good. But as for the other songs in the game, they actually do sound pretty good and dark and suit the theme. Although the other songs are not nearly as memorable as the main theme is, but it does sound really good. But more importantly, it sounds good and it suits it perfectly, so with that being said, the soundtrack is actually pretty good. Now, if you want to buy this game, it's going to cost you at least $20 for a loose cart, and as for a complete in box, it can go up to like $30 to $50. Hell, I've even seen a sealed copy for $120, but I think that's a bit much. But if I say so myself, I think $20 for this kind of game is actually pretty good. And it's also nice to know that this game actually did come with a poster. Now, this is a game I don't think I've ever seen in the wild before, and if I have, well, I can't really remember. But it generally is not too expensive and is pretty affordable. And honestly, I was actually kind of expecting this game to be a lot more, knowing how Genesis games are going up these days. Damn you, El Viento. Now, if I were to rate this one, I think I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It's actually a pretty fun game, and it is very challenging as well. And I had quite a bit of fun with it, even though I do wish that there was more characters, or at least play as more character styles. But it is good to know that they at least got one character to be playable rather than a whole bunch of characters to be unplayable. But other than that, the overall presentation is actually pretty damn good. And yeah, I do have those two little complaints about, like, the hit detection isn't perfect, and the whole thing about the animation is a little bit delayed, but other than that, though, I do find this game is still a pretty fun game. And interesting enough, this game was supposed to be on the Super Nintendo, but that port of it got cancelled, so this game is actually exclusive to Genesis. So if you happen to be a fan of the show and you own a Genesis, then you're in luck because you actually got a game based after the show, and not only that, but it was actually good. Because I'm sure we all know how a lot of games that are based after shows or movies usually go. Well, not all of them are bad, but of course they do have a reputation of a lot of them being bad. Of course, most of them being in like the 8-bit and the 16-bit era. Because there was a lot of them that were trying to be like the next Mario or the next Sonic. But like I said, some of them are good and there are some that are bad, and this one is actually pretty good. Now, one thing I have heard someone said before that was actually kind of interesting was that this game is actually kind of like a mix between Toy Story and Demon's Crest, and now that I think about it, yeah, just a little bit. Now, it may not be exactly like those two, but pretty similar enough that I can actually get the reference to it. So now that's all I have to say about the game Gargoyles on the Sega Genesis, and it was actually a fairly solid game. And even though it does kind of suck that this show got cancelled in 1997, I do kind of wish that there was like a reboot or something of it. I don't know, I think I would like to see them get back at it again. But, I don't know, maybe we might see that in the future, but I'm not entirely sure. So, anyways. So that's the end of this review, and I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching and commenting.